Welcome to the Heat of Command podcast, mastering the art of fire service leadership.
Where we, your hosts, aim to teach you how to use introspection and self-reflection to be your most authentic, genuine self, leader, and human being.
And now, here are your hosts. This is Kyle Matusik.
And Kerry Henderson. Thanks for joining.
Welcome back to another episode of the Heat of Command podcast, where we talk about leadership, forged in fire and led with that purpose. Today's episode is about something we all feel, but rarely call out. And I'm pretty excited about this one. The gap between what we say and what we actually do. And to add another point to that is what we say and what we think we're doing, because sometimes there's a disconnect there. We throw around words like brotherhood, loyalty, and leadership, but how often do our actions back that up? Like if we really sit there and examine it. I've seen it, and maybe all of you have seen it too. People who say, I've got your back, but disappear when things get real. And not just on the fire scenes, but in real life as well. Officers who preach accountability, but never self-reflect. So let's talk about it, Kerry. Let's talk about why our actions matter more than our words, and what that disconnect is doing to our culture, our crews, and to our calling.
I'm super excited about this one too. And when we were brainstorming ideas and you brought this up, this instantly resonated with me. And I've just seen it so many times where, and sometimes I don't think it's necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not purposeful, but I don't think people do it maliciously. That was the word I was looking for, maliciously. But I see a lot where people say they're doing this thing, like, I'm doing this thing, and they talk and talk and talk about how they have integrity, or they talk and talk about how, they're a hard worker, or they say hard things, or they have difficult conversations, or they're whatever. And then they're doing something that is not matching up with that. So their actions are totally misaligned with their words. And how do you constructively call that out? Right? Because you also want your words to align with your actions. And we talk and preach all the time about, how to have conversations with people and how to meet people where they are and how to be empathetic. And so how do we constructively call that out and make people want to change that, or even to see that that's what they're doing is a big step, right? Is to to get people to understand that what they're saying is not what they're doing. And they may totally think that what they're saying is what they're doing. And they go home at night and they say, I walked the walk and talked the talk today. And the people that interacted with them feel much differently about those encounters. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think I think that's the biggest challenge when we talk about words and actions is the people that think they're doing something that are so far removed, right? Their sense of reality is not reality at all. And I think that shows me a few things. Number one, the brokenness within our industry that people fail to realize in themselves, which is scary, right? When we don't have that self-awareness of who we are and what we're doing, but we tie words to what we think we're doing, that just shows a lack of, we talk about emotional intelligence, but then, just a step further, there's some brokenness there that we are believing some false reality. And you hit it right on the head. It is hard to approach those conversations because typically defenses go up immediately. I've attempted this with one person before, and it's a very hard place to be. You want to talk about hard conversations? I know we've talked about hard conversations on this show, but these conversations take it a step further. But I think it goes and shows to such a much larger problem. The lack of real relationships where we can have open and honest discussions with people without getting defensive, especially people who are real friends or, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but real brothers or sisters, we throw, that's like the blanket term we can put in this episode that say we talk this, but do we walk this, right? We claim brother and sisterhood, but are we doing it? And that's just a kind of a catch-all, and we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. But we look at those folks and you start trying to realize where the problem lies. And I think it's a lack of community and real relationships within our industry. And I know we tie family and stuff into this, but is it really happening? I don't know. I think we just live in this world where there's just a lot of individuals that people are out there for themselves. They do a lot of things for them. And so it's their reality. It's about them. It's their reality. It's this, and period, end of story. And I think that's where a lot of this falls into place, where people are saying a lot of things, but they're not doing it. And it's not just so much, there's different levels to this. There's number one saying, if I'm saying, yeah, I'm I show humility, I'm respectful, I'm this, but in your actions, you're none of those things. You can't, you pretend, but everybody sees it, and you just know that's not authenticity right there. It's just fake. And it's cool because you're seeing a lot of the younger people that are catching on to this a lot quicker than I did, which is cool. And you can see right through people. And then there's, on the operational side or the training side or the actual, task where you're going to tell people to do something, which it's something, you've never done or can't do or don't do. So, this is multiple different areas. The one that I really am seeing now, and it's not just in our industry, it's in multiple industries. And it's almost like people get into senior roles and they get this chip on their shoulders, like I made it so I can say whatever I want, it sounds good, and I don't have to back it up with any of my actions. So like I'm a leader, I need to be respected. I need and I deserve all this. I've earned it all. And it's like, no, not really. Positions don't give you that ability, but this has been on my heart for a while, because I've just seen it, and I just see people that the biggest area I see it is people claiming themselves to be some X characteristic, and they're so far removed from that. And it's like having those conversations on trying to get that out, and I think all of us at some point, especially low maturity levels, you might think you're hardworking or humble or passionate, but in reality, you're none of those things, but you just don't know yet because maybe life experience or whatever. And then you start really coming into who you are and then just live in that. And you don't have to be every characteristic out there that's in those textbooks saying what a good leader is, So it's just a very interesting topic, and to see personalities work with under some false reality that's not true, and just they'll preach it until they're blue in the face, right? And they will not deny it. And it's like, I could put it on a huge poster and put it in front of your face and you won't believe it. Everybody can tell you, and it's like, it goes back to that personality, right? You want to know who you really are, go ask 10 people around you and be willing to hear what they have to say. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many episodes, or maybe even full episodes we could do that are spinoffs. I you know, it that and going back to that, we've preached in the fire service for many years, which I think it was needed, but we're not there yet. We haven't finished. Is, how to have hard conversations that affect change with people. But now maybe, and we're talking about that, and people are talking about that all over the fire service. But maybe now it's time to shift the message of, when is it important to stay quiet?
Yeah.
When is it important to say less? When is it important to take a breath and not reactively respond? When is it important, and how do you do that? Because I think we've done a lot of talk about how to say the things. So,
Right.
but now, when do you not say the things? And when is that important? And also, like, a whole nother episode I think we could talk about is saying less and doing more action. Is
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, like, what are the things? So you were just talking about, asking others around you, so that if you're trying to figure out if you're walking the talk and talking the whatever the saying is, you know what I mean? If you're if you're doing the things you're saying you're doing, and you're willing to do some self-reflection, is, okay, so let's say I think I'm this. So let's say I think that I'm empathetic, and that's what I stand for, and that's what I tell people. What are some times that I've shown that? And it's hard for me sometimes to think of those examples, because if it's something that's natural to you, whatever that characteristic is. You don't think about it that way. But really, if you sat down and thought about it, when's a time that I really displayed that? And if you can think of 0 times or times where you're like, "Ooh, I should have been more empathetic there," or "I should have been more empathetic there," then that's when you can, you need to start saying, "Well, I'm gonna stop saying that until I'm doing the thing." And then make it a priority, not to say it out loud, but to do it instead. And I think that self-reflection for me, that would be the best way for me. Like, okay, I really, really want to, can't even think of something right now, but like, I really want to be this thing. Okay, but I can think of no examples where I was doing that. So, like, for me right now, because I saw this the other day and it really hit home, is I want to say less. And what because I am the first one to talk in meetings. I always have an opinion on something. And so that this last year has been something I've really been working on is when I speak, I want it to mean something and not just that Kerry always has a response, which I think it's important to participate in meetings and to give your opinion, but I want it to be more thoughtful and more, more of a statement piece than just, constant Kerry has constant dialogue. And so that's something I've been thinking about is, all right, in which meetings or which interactions did you say less? And it's hard for me. That's super, super hard for me. I mean, you can ask my mom. Every report card said I talk too much and they moved my seat 10 times. And my kid is getting the same comments on every report card. So it runs in the family.
Yeah, that self-reflection piece is so big, and there's two things just as you were talking that I thought of, and number one is also sometimes things are said because they're supposed to be, or it's that audience that needs to hear it. Like I think of like promotional ceremonies or maybe new hires, but somewhere where you got an audience and you got to speak. So you have to use words like leader or this person's getting promoted and they've shown this leadership. Sometimes I want to raise my hand and be like, can you give me one example of that? Right?
Well,
Because I know you can't, right?
Yeah.
Like I know you can't and you know you can't. So why are we saying these things? Like it makes zero sense to me, like none. And the people who've been a part of an organization or have seen these things see right through it. You're like, you're calling these people and you're giving accolades for nothing. You couldn't even give me a single example. And that just perpetuates a problem, right? And then the young people see it and we exacerbate it and it just continues. As long as I say what I should be, I'm good, right? I don't need to do anything. So it's as long as you talk the talk, that's cool. That's all we want. And then you're in and you're accepted and you could drive far in that in your career. You really can.
Well, but the problem is, and it boils back down to how we all got started, is it's so inauthentic.
Yeah.
That the people that crave genuineness, because there are those of us out there
Yep.
that don't want to hear the right words. I want to hear the real words.
Yeah.
I want to hear the words that mean something. They see right through that and you lose them.
Yeah.
Immediately. If someone is up there doing that, I'm immediately checked out, and I get the ick.
Yeah.
That ick feeling of nope, mm-mm. So say real things, say real things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's so fun talking about this. And then the next thing, one of the big things of bringing up this topic that back in 2015 so that's 10 years now, right? That's when mental health really, I think, started to get a big push in our industry. And a lot of talking and awareness level type training came, which I think was extremely beneficial. And yeah, we started talking a lot about mental health. So my question is, like, where are we today versus 10 years ago? And in my opinion, not much further, right? We still talk about it quite a bit, and that's about it. And we look at, and we could pull like different scenarios out and this and that, and it's like the way they're dealt with are the exact same. It's like something happens in an organization, everybody's like, oh, we got to do something, right? And it's like, what? And well, we got to do this, and we got to get these people in and this. And it's like, what if we haven't learned anything? We haven't learned what empathy is or compassion. We just have to check a box that's on a list somewhere that somebody told us that we have to be doing. And it's like, man, we just need to, like, Yeah, and that's like one of the examples. These things that are hard or countercultural to us in our industry, that have a lot of resistance to them, just become talking points all the time. And it's suicides and mental health issues in our industry are still there. And on an organizational level, what are you doing as an organization to prevent that from happening? And is it different than 10 years ago? And most aren't, right? I'm sure there are some good ones that are doing some type of integrated mental health type stuff or have clinicians as part of their staff. Like, that's cool. But like in its entirety, I just don't see that we're much further ahead than we were 10 years ago. Yeah, we talk about it, but where are the actions behind it? And I think that's where we're just failing to want to invest, and for numerous reasons, right? People are nervous, they don't know what to do, they're intimidated by it, it's countercultural. As long as we keep talking about it and saying words, we're good.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, certainly we are doing much better because look at all the manuals and policies that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, more policies.
More words, more policies. And it
Right,
just
right.
goes back. It's more words.
More
It's
words.
more words, less actions, right? And it is hard. That is a very hard problem to solve. And I don't know, we are not suited to solve it.
Right, correct.
Right. This is like
Absolutely.
this is
I'm gonna give you another ding, 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 ding.
cliche fire department.
Yeah.
Like, here's a problem. Someone surely in the department should be able to solve this. Well, it's not my area of expertise, right? I can do the very best I can do and try and, you know, do the things. And I think a lot of departments are trying to do the thing. They're trying to figure it out and they're trying to not just put words on paper to meet some obligation. They're trying to do the right thing, but we don't have the solution. And even Darley's essay contest this year is that mental health struggles in the fire service are firefighters unique. Are we unique or not? And I can't wait to read the essays because that's a darn good question.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And am I suited to answer that? Probably not. But and going back to this whole thing that you're talking about is words and saying words and buzzwords and putting words down on paper or saying words out loud just to say them or to write them, and they mean nothing. And I see this so ever since we did the exercise in our department for identifying our vision and our values, and I was so hung up on that those words had gotten just to me were such buzzwords, and I'm not talking just the fire service. In every organization, everybody's got some meaningless mission, vision, and value statements, and I just hated it when we were going to do it, and so I kept telling the fire chief, the words have to mean something to us, or it just gives me that ick feeling that, and I kept telling that to him. And I know he was probably like, shut, I'm tired of hearing you say that. But like, it needs to be, again, authentic and genuine, or they're literally just words on paper. So now when I go to other fire departments, I look for theirs because I want to see if it's words on paper or if it's, and most of them are words on paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm so proud of ours. And it's to me, at least they mean something to me. So I hope they mean something to other people. But and all the buzzwords that come out, if you've said a word, if I've heard a word in the fire service or out in the universe more than probably 10 or 15 times, to me, it's a buzzword. And I'm like, come up with something else. Like, I get hung up on that. People pick a word and they're like obsessed with it. And it's like, you don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? It's just like, I get irritated. I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, this this might end up being our longest episode ever. There's, when we look at, and because I want our audience to be able to apply this to yourself. And I think when we look at the term brotherhood, sisterhood, I think this is a big one. Like, what does that mean? Because a lot of people throw this around, but what does it mean? And I think a lot of times it's a word. Well, we're this family, we're this. And it's like, are we? Like, is your organization, or is it just another word that we say because it's what our culture has taught us to? So when we break it down at its core, like, is it like, just ask yourself, is my organization really this family? Is it really? Will anybody here show up for me at any moment? And I guarantee you that answer is no. And a lot of times, like in our culture, maybe especially where I work, like you have to meet this threshold of it being bad enough and then we'll show up. So it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for a word. It'll come to me. It's conditional, right? The brotherhood, sisterhood is conditional based on if we think it deserves the brotherhood or sisterhood to be there, right? And I think we do a great job showing up in the line of duty deaths of fallen firefighters. Like you see everybody show up, and I think that's great. But beyond that, I don't, right? I don't see people show up in the day-to-day struggles, in family struggles, in life struggles, in the good, in the joy, in the happy, in the barbecues, in the parties. It's like I said earlier, so many people are living, you look at society as a whole, and what has happened over time is we just become more and more into ourselves and less of a community of people. And I think that is like the problem in so many scenarios, not just in the fire service. Like when we lose this community aspect of where we just can have a conversation, talk about life, like real conversation about life. And that's it, And a lot of times when we look at that term brother or sisterhood, it's like, if we're only supporting people who are like us, think like us, talk like us, and then if they're not us, again, that's where it's brother sisterhood is conditional. So it's like, examine that for your organizations, for you, if you utilize those terms. Like, do we really live by the traits of what it means to be a brother or sister? Like at its core. I don't know. I would beg to differ. I don't think that's the case. And a lot of times, we've talked about, I don't know if we talked about this on air, but we know at some of the major conferences within our industry recently, it's been said we need that old culture back. My question to that is, what is that old culture? Again, it's another play on words and everybody hoorahs behind it. But what do we really mean by that? And it's explaining that. Do we want this brother sisterhood back that maybe it was a little bit better back in the 70s, 80s, and everybody showed up for everything? Maybe. Is that what you mean? Is it tactics, overly aggressive tactics that are extremely risky for the scenario given? Like, do we really want to go backwards there? We progress. We should be always progressing and not looking back. Obviously, we're going to make mistakes along the way, but as long as we learn and continue forward progress, we should not be going backwards. But, so examine that word brother, sisterhood. What does it mean to you and your organization? Is it a culture worth going backwards on as well? And like, if anybody's out there listening that wants to answer that for me, like, we need the old culture back, like, please explain it. Like, I want to know instead of just saying that word, we need this old, like, I just don't know what that means. And it's just not going to happen anyways, So
Yeah.
just to put that out there, sorry to burst your bubble, but I'm genuinely interested, and it's just in so many areas now, it's just, there's so many plays on words and it's just, like you said, people just need to be quiet and just do, like, show me and then I'm good. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about this in the training world a lot is, when we identify something that's an issue, we usually swing way the other way first, right? So, in the training world, we were tough on people, and there was like a not when people would come to training evolutions, it didn't feel like a safe place to make mistakes. It was very assessment like, or like you were being tested or tricked. And that was kind of early days of my career. And so we swung way the other way where it's, training is a safe place, a safe space, and you can come here and screw up and it's not hard. And now we're kind of trying to meet in the middle somewhere where it's a place that's very you come to training and it's challenging, but it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay, but we still want to push you really hard so that what you're capable of, and your brain learns to work under the stress of those neurochemicals, and not get tunnel vision and all that stuff. So, but this is that same thing, that same phenomenon of, we swung way the other way of having hard conversations and saying all the words and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, now let's swing back and say less and then bring it back somewhere in the middle. So practice saying less and doing more, and then see where you can kind of meet in the middle between saying just enough. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This is just right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just interesting. Everything kind of comes like that. It's like swing one way and then swing back the other way. It's okay. Where is this nice, happy medium where you know when to be quiet and you know when to listen more, and you know when, and sometimes people talk just so and I'm guilty of this, just so you seem like you're part of it, right?
Yeah.
Or you seem like you know something. It's like, well, really, like, that's not my area of expertise. So I'm just gonna be quiet and learn something. And then, but I am also guilty in conversation. If people are trying to talk through something or trying to have a conversation or brainstorm and no one is talking, like, I'm like, well, I've been in that position. I don't want them to feel like this is pointless. So I will always try to contribute.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, but I, I, there's just so much here for people to practice and really learn from. And I need to find, because I sent this to a few people in my close circle, and let me find it. And it just really hit home to me lately about some of the stuff that I felt was really, let's see. It says, a woman in my team never said no, ever. She just she just asked who's approving the extra hours every time, calm and smiling. After 3 months, they stopped piling nonsense on her. She taught the team boundaries don't require conflict, just receipts. Now they call her the velvet wall. Lesson, you don't have to bark to have bite. Some wolves just sip tea and invoice it. I just
I like
liked it.
that.
Yeah, a velvet wall. She's a velvet wall. So it's, you don't have to bark back at everything. You just need to have a pretty solid response and boundaries and set
Yeah.
some boundaries. So
Yeah, that's well said. Over the last year, 2 years in my career, I've kind of kept quiet and just kind of on the sidelines. And you don't know if that's more powerful than opening your mouth, And, it's just interesting when we sit here and talk about this, because I'm sure early on in my career, this was me. I'd say a lot of things, but I wasn't acting that way. I wasn't humble or showing you humility to our young guys, especially. I got stories which I've shared on here before with the young guys and coming out of the military, getting on the job and just fitting in the culture. Like I did what I could to fit in the culture and be the culture and hoorah. Yeah. That didn't get me very far, and, so like I get both sides, and that's, I think, why it's very frustrating for me to see, because where I'm at now, I'm a lot happier, right? There's a lot more peace in my heart. And I just don't buy into the BS that happens. Like I can see through it all. And I see a lot of brokenness, right? In people individually, and it's sad. And it's the same people that don't want to hear it either. Like I get where it comes from. I don't like it, and it's those boundaries are so important to be able to continue to progress, and stay a course that is positive and doing what you think is right. And, with that, people will come, and people, it's not the easiest road, but I just caution, I really want to just put out caution, like just stop saying these hot terms that you read in a textbook, because you're probably not them. Because if you were them, you wouldn't need to say them. That's the one big thing. If you are something, you don't need to tell people that you are. They already know. And so like nowadays, when people tell me that they're this or that or the other thing, I'm like, no, you're not, right? No, because you wouldn't have to tell me and I could just see it. It's just, it's wild. It's so wild as and for our young listeners, it's just that continued growth, on purpose and who you are beyond the title of the job and really living within that. And if you do that, you have this opportunity to become your authentic self, and you're able to see through all this just phoniness that people talk and don't back up with their actions. And it is very frustrating. And again, it's not just in our industry, it's all over the place. But we, in our job, in our profession, right? A lot of people say we're a step above or we should be exemplifying these traits. Like, this is our challenge. Like, bring it back to this and that authentic self and the authenticity of our industry.
Yeah, and a whole nother episode I did too, but, words really matter, and I think not only do words matter, but the delivery and the tone matter too. So you can say a whole lot less, and I think some people try, and I'm guilty, I try to over-explain something, and it really, if the way you're saying something can mean a whole lot more than 100 words of, trying to explain something, and of course, I'm not doing a great job of explaining this, but I think tone really, really matters, and delivery really, really matters. Sometimes less so than the words you were using. So I heard a conversation today, right, taking place, and this person was trying to tell someone that was helping, that this guy was helping out a lot and was kind of burning himself out. And so they sent someone to try to tell him, "Hey, we appreciate your help, but you're burning yourself out." And the way it was delivered, this was my interpretation, because the guy basically decided, "Oh, you don't want my help anymore." That was what he took out of the message. And they were mad at him because he was telling everyone, "They don't want my help anymore. They don't need help. They don't want help anymore." So they were mad at him. I'm like, "Well, that's what he took out of the message you delivered to him. So I don't know that you should be mad at him." Like, that's what he took out of it. And maybe he was burnout and exhausted, and that's, the way you delivered it, that's the only way he could accept it. But the words mattered, and the tone and that delivery mattered a whole lot. And yeah, you were trying to help him, and it was like self-sabotage.
Yeah, it's always the classic, right? You get mad at somebody for the way they react to your BS. I'm always like, "Well, yeah, what? Like, this
Yeah.
makes no sense." Another thing that makes no sense, right? But that's that deflection and that blame that we often talk about. And it's just like, wait, you're mad at me for the way I reacted to the way you treated me. And it's like, wait,
Yeah.
this doesn't make any sense. But that's par for
And
the course.
this podcast, and we've said this before, is not just for the fire service. And I know it's very fire service centered, but this goes back to
Oh, yeah.
relationships too. Is I see this so many times where a partner wants to come to you and say, "This is what's bothering me." And then you're mad, you turn around and get mad at them and get defensive. And I'm like, "How are you mad at Wait, why are you mad at me? Like, I was trying to tell you how I feel and,
Yeah.
you know, what's bothering me, and this has gotten twisted." And I see that men and women, both sides.
Yeah.
This is not a one way or the other kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at when we look at leaders and this what we're talking about today, it's looking at leadership is starting with integrity and not performance, and I think we struggle there in our industry specifically. And then my question to everybody out there is: would you rather build leadership based on trust or based on performance? And I think historically, maybe just my organization, but I think historically, we base a lot of it on performance, the involvement of somebody, the amount of, how much they're drinking the Kool-Aid of this industry. And that's how we base leadership on. And should we be? I'm not saying performance is not an important part of leadership, but if we have trust and integrity in our leaders that back up what they say, don't just say the cool words or the slang words for that year or time, or they just read a textbook and they're coming in spewing all this stuff that they read, but they don't follow. So where should we start with leadership? I think this is a great discussion, sitting down, especially if you have a young crew, you go sit and ask them this question. And steer them. I would steer them in the realm of integrity and trust. That's going to get you a lot farther in this job. It's going to get you a lot farther as a leader. It's going to get you a lot farther on the fire ground. But in performance is still important, but not basing our sole leader. Like, where does it start? Do we want somebody just to be, excellent at all these things before they start learning trust and integrity? Or do we build trust and integrity? Because what we're called to do takes a lot of trust and integrity from the general public, from each other. That's where it starts. And at least in my opinion, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to go back to that conversation about performance versus integrity is the people that exude really good leadership qualities, if they're having performance issues, are working on them. Because I think to have integrity is to understand your limits and your issues, right? And is to be working on them. Because if you know you have a deficiency and you're not working on them, that's not a characteristic of a leader.
Right.
So you're working on them. Maybe not publicly, but you're working on them. And so I think that's kind of how those two things tie together.
Yeah, I think, and when we look at the fallout of the inconsistency of talking and not backing up what you say, and we use a lot of words and not actions. And again, this is for our listeners. Examine your organization. Where's your morale at? Because you'll see morale drop when people in leadership roles say a lot of things, but they don't do them and they don't back them, and they never have. The trust in your organization is gone, which is scary. And that cynicism spreads. That's just how it is. And that is unfortunate. And that's especially now that we have so many young people coming into our organizations. It's like, this is the time where it just doesn't have to be like that anymore, where the scales start flipping, where you start getting rid of some of the older mentalities of this is just the way it was, and you could start tipping the scales the other way. But that's not an easy fight. Then that's a hard place to be in when you're going countercultural, right? So, it does look at your organization. How's the morale? How's the trust? Is there cynicism? And if there is, like, examine this. Or is there just a lot spoken that is not followed up with action? My guess and my bet would be that there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you are a buzzwordy kind of person, my call to action is, do you know what the words mean? And what do they mean to you? And if you're going to throw around some words that are buzzy, okay, no problem. I'm fine with that. But I want you to know what they mean and what they mean to you, and why. Why is it an important word? Not just because that's what everybody else is saying right now.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of that, and
Mhm.
you've talked about it before too. When people come back from a class, and that's always the best. You're like, "Who are you? Hold on a second. You just
Yeah.
read some cool words, and now
Yes.
all of a
But
sudden,
but I will play devil's advocate because I've said this before. If people are trying to get better and they're going out there and taking leadership stuff and they're coming back with stuff, like, I always tell people, like, give some people some grace. They're trying to work on it, but at the same time, like, if you're coming back from a class, you can't immediately be someone different.
right,
You
right.
you gotta figure out a nice balance.
Especially if you were one way for 20 years and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden
yeah,
it flips. And again, that comes back to the community of people that you're around, to where you bring these ideas back and it's like, okay, how do I start implementing? I come to you, Kerry, and call you up and be like, hey, I went to this class. I like some of this stuff, but how do I go about implementing some of this? Like, I don't know. It's almost like your growth needs to happen behind closed doors, and then just let it happen. You don't need to be saying things. You don't need to be vocalizing what you're doing, how you're doing it. Just do it. Just do
just do
instead
it.
of
Yes,
talk, right?
exactly. Yes, yes, yes. Do the things. Yeah. All right, well, as always, this was fabulous, and we thank you all for tuning in to another episode. And Kyle is going to be taking some time to travel with his family, which we love.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, summertime is rapidly approaching. So we will be hit or miss on podcasts the next probably couple months, but we will be back, we promise. So don't forget about us, and we will talk to you soon.
As we wrap up another episode, this has been Kyle
And Kerry,
from the Heat of Command podcast.
thank you, as always, for listening. Please make sure to follow and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And as always, we love the feedback. Keep it coming.
See you next time.